Emergency contacting has been used since the beginning of time. It started with church bells ringing and evolved into a less than 30-second call to know what the problem is and where you're located. We chose emergency contacting as our project because we felt that the innovations and changes it had made on our society were life-saving. Emergency contacting is something that affected each one of our lives and even saved lives close to us. We felt the best way to show what we had learned was through the people who had taught it to us firsthand. Emergency contacting had first started to evolve when Alexander Graham Bell created the first phone in January of 1878. It had then evolved into Stephen Muir co-creating the 911 software used today.
So my name is Stephen Muir. I'm the co-founder and chief technology officer at Entrado Incorporated. And we do many things for emergency services, one of which is we operate a very large emergency communications system that allows public safety people to talk to people in the community, either by telephone or by text message, in case of an emergency.
So it's 911?
Well, we also support the 911 system. Most of the 911 infrastructure in the United States is built and operated by us for the telephone companies and for the government agencies, and the emergency notification piece is a part of it.
How have you, over the years, how have you seen, emergency contacting, change and, evolve, or how has it, impacted society?
So emergency communications has changed quite a bit over the last number of years. Certainly, it used to be you had to go to a wired telephone or a payphone or a phone in somebody's house to call for help, and if we needed to call you back, all we had was the ability to call your house and say, hey, something's going on. Now, of course, with wireless communication, the internet, texting, we can get a hold of anybody almost everywhere.
Do you think reverse 911 calls have made a difference on child abductions and natural disasters and that kind of stuff?
We have lots of history of using outbound emergency notification to actually have a huge impact on people's lives. I'm aware of a situation where an elderly Alzheimer's patient wandered away from her home in the middle of the night and would have frozen to death were it not for an outbound call and neighbors going out to look around for their kids.
Do you think that the evolution of emergency contacting was important to our history?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I think the ability to deal with emergency situations quickly and get good, accurate information into people's hands quickly has a huge impact on their life and the ability for the community to respond to things. So I think it's had certainly a positive effect.
What do you think is the most useful invention or system used for emergency contacting?
Certainly the ability to contact people on whatever device they carry around with them, typically their wireless phone or their text device, seems to have the most utility, is what we're finding. And of course, we're just getting into the technology now to be able to alert people based on exactly where they are in the moment rather than where they're registered to live.
How exactly does the 911 service work?
Well, 911 is a large system of technology and databases. So it works behind the scenes so that if you have an emergency situation, either a threat to people or property, and you pick up your phone, whether it's wired or wireless, and you dial the digits 911, the telephone network, using a variety of technologies, knows where you are, knows which is the right public safety agency to send that call to. We deliver the call to the public safety agency, and then when the call gets there, we put information on display about who you are and where you're calling from.
My name's Matt Coquell, and I'm a firefighter here.
Okay, how are you involved in emergency contacting?
I'm involved in a lot of different ways. Here, a lot of times we're the first people on scene to emergency medical calls. When people call 911, we'll be the first people there to offer pre-emergency hospital care. So I'll help with IVs and getting vital signs is getting people loaded up and ready to go to the hospital.
Okay. How has emergency contacting affected people?
Well, a lot of people, it helps them. It's a life or death thing, and it helps them in that manner. There'll also be people that call us who need mental help. They'll call because they're psych patients or whatnot, and by getting there, you're able to help diffuse the situation or help them in the long run by encouraging them to go to the hospital.
Okay. Over time, how have you seen emergency contacting improve?
Things like CPR. Now there's machines that'll do it automatically, which is more effective, and it's better than a person doing it because we get tired and a machine will never get tired doing CPR. So there's always advances in the medical field and always advances in products.
And I started out as a paramedic firefighter back in the 80s, and mostly I've been doing emergency medicine most of that time as well. Well, we're an emergency department, so for me specifically, I'm the charge nurse a lot of times. So obviously if there is somebody that has a stabbing or a gunshot wound that comes in, everybody else pretty much gets put on hold. There are other nurses that care for that patient, but right now that person is in a life-threatening situation. So we quickly determine what their needs are. If they need an airway or they need to go to the operating room pretty emergently, we quickly determine that. That doesn't mean everybody else gets neglected because we have enough staff to kind of oversee that, but me as a charge nurse, it's my responsibility to make sure that patient is taken care of pretty quickly, and that all the communication's happening between all the services and the physicians and x-ray and the staff and what their needs are to care for that emergent person at that moment.
Marcus Askins, and I'm a police officer.
Okay, so how has it changed, and how has it changed schools?
It's changed. It's changed overall just because students can become more aggressive. You have female students where, when I first got started, I would hardly ever have to deal with an aggressive female. Now I deal with aggressive females just as much as I do with aggressive males. So it does change a lot, so that changes our response and how we're going to handle that, how we're going to train for that, for being more aggressive. With security, understanding what they can and cannot do, and actually physically going hands-on with the person. That wasn't the case when I first got started. You would hear about that so less, but now it's a pretty significant thing. So it's changed dramatically, and our training just changed all the time with that. But I think it's just stuff that goes on in society filters down into what we see in schools a lot of times.
As you can see, emergency contacting was and still is something that changes society. The innovations made throughout history has not only made lives easier, but also saved lives as well. Emergency contacting has changed a lot over the years and will continue to save millions of lives and progress throughout time.